at the White House. And with us here in the studio, MSNBC, or actually in the D.C. studio, MSNBC host and Washington Post associate editor Jonathan Capehart, and then in New York with me, MSNBC political analyst and former Congressman David Jolly. Dasha, what more are we learning this morning about Trump's transition plans and the chatter about who could serve in his next administration?
So, Anna, I just got off the phone moments ago with a senior campaign official who tells me that the focus today is going to be, number one, returning the many, many calls from world leaders that he's receiving. And number two, it's going to be his first meeting with the transition team that's been run by Howard Lutnick and Linda McMahon. And the focus now turns to his staff, his cabinet, who he's going to bring around him to the White House. This advisor says that he feels like that was his Achilles heel in his first administration, and he's really focused on getting the right people around him. Some of the folks under consideration for the cabinet, for Secretary of Defense, we've got Mike Waltz, Senator Tom Cotton, potentially Mike Pompeo. The national security positions, Kash Patel, John Ratcliffe, Senator Marco Rubio, who's also under consideration for Secretary of State, along with Rick Grinnell. For AG, Mark Paletta, John Ratcliffe, and then for Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, who has been spearheading this campaign, Brooke Rollins, and then Elise Stefanik under consideration for ambassador to the United Nations. I'm also told, Anna, that he's really focused on looking at the policies, the proposals that he promised this time around, and he's very keenly aware of the people who elected him. He's looking at this broad coalition. He feels like he has a massive mandate, and last time around there was some disorganization. They weren't expecting the win, right? And they kind of, this senior campaign official tells me, forgot who brought them there. This time around they really want to keep the people that elected them at the forefront and really focus on getting things done on energy, on the economy, the no tax on tips proposal. That there's a different attitude from the former president this time around, and some of that bitterness that we have seen from him on the campaign trail is gone. There's no more talk of Jack Smith or Letitia James, in part because now his legal troubles are sort of set to the side, but also because he feels good about where he's at with this mandate from the American people, Anna.
Gabe, President Biden is going to be shepherding the country through this transition process, and he'll be speaking as the leader of his party for one of his final times. What will we hear from him next hour?
Hi there, Anna. Well, yes, we expect the president to speak here at the White House at the Rose Garden within the next hour or so, and we expect him to hit on that message that Vice President Harris talked about yesterday during her concession speech, this idea of the importance of a peaceful transfer of power. And to that end, you know, what you mentioned earlier, that he extended this invitation to former President, or now to President-elect Trump, to come here to the White House. You'll recall back in 2016, then President Obama extended that invitation to Donald Trump at that point. But that did not happen in 2020. Trump did not invite Biden here to the White House. So in this speech in the next hour, we do expect the president to focus on that message of the importance of a peaceful transfer of power, but also to hit on the administration's priorities in the short time that they have left. I was speaking with a White House official just this morning who says that among those priorities, aid to Ukraine, also implementing more of the Inflation Reduction Act and the CHIPS Act, and also talking about more funding, supplemental funding for disaster relief. So still a lot to do for the administration before January 20th, but we do expect the president, again, after he waited to allow Vice President Harris to speak, he did release a written statement yesterday calling her a tremendous partner. We expect to hear more of that in just a short time, Anna.
Gabe Gutierrez and Dasha Burns, thank you both for your relentless reporting. Jonathan, what does the nation need to hear from President Biden, and how does he reassure Democrats and roughly half the electorate, many of whom are fearful about what another Trump term will bring?
Well, I expect him to repeat a lot of the same messages that the vice president said to the nation yesterday. Above all else, President Biden is a statesman. He is an institutionalist. He reveres the presidency and the responsibilities, both in terms of the duties, but also in terms of how one should comport themselves, both in actions and in words, from that office. I think he's going to use the opportunity to try to bring the country together, both those who voted for President-elect Trump and those who voted for Vice President Harris, in the hopes that the country can come together and heal. And yet we're talking about a president-elect who used his campaign to say some of the most awful things we've heard on the campaign trail. And I just want to point one other thing out, Anna, in the clip that you showed of the vice president's speech yesterday, where she said that we must accept the election results, that she spoke to Donald Trump and congratulated him on his victory, that she will help in the transition, and that she's looking forward to a peaceful transfer of power. Those are all things Donald Trump did not do when he lost the election in 2020. So between what the vice president said yesterday and what I expect to hear from the president today, they are sending the clear message that they of standing up for the constitutional order, for the rule of law, and for the way the Constitution is supposed to be revered.
Guys, I have another projection to make. NBC News can now project that Donald Trump is the winner in Alaska, picking up 3 more electoral votes. Again, he already met the threshold needed to become president-elect, but it does give him 3 more electoral votes in terms of the Electoral College. Donald Trump winning Alaska. Now he has 295 electoral votes, with a couple of states, as you can see there, Nevada and Arizona, not called yet for the presidency. So, Congressman, Jonathan touched on this, but we've now heard from Vice President Harris, the statements from the Obama, Speaker Emeritus Nancy Pelosi, all really highlighting the peaceful transfer of power that's about to take place. After what happened with Trump in 2020, your thoughts on how Democrats have handled this election loss?
Exactly as we have seen throughout history that a defeated party should handle it. And I think Jonathan's comment is exactly right. You see in both Vice President Harris as well as Joe Biden a recognition that the office is greater than one person and that the Constitution really holds a preeminence in this moment. We did not see that from Donald Trump, as we all know. And so it will be, I think, a moment for Joe Biden to display the grace that we typically see from him, even in moments of defeat. But I think for those looking for how do we handle 4 years of Donald Trump testing the elasticity of the Constitution, if you will, how strong are those guardrails? We heard it from Vice President Harris yesterday. I expect we'll hear it from Joe Biden today, that the office is greater than one person, the Constitution is greater, and that the ideals and protections of the Constitution are what any opposition to Trump needs to be wrapped into in the next 4 years. Because immediately after taking office, Donald Trump will probably begin to test some of those constitutional guardrails. And I expect President Biden will remind us that there is relief in the Constitution if we look through that lens as Donald Trump takes office.
And when we talk about our Constitution, I had an interesting conversation with my kids last night at the dinner table about the way the country works and
That's right.
You know, the 4 years of a presidency. And they asked about Donald Trump returning to power after not being in power. Could he run again? My 8-year-old asked me, and we had this whole conversation about the way it's supposed to work in this country. Jonathan, we ticked through some of the names on Trump's potential cabinet list. We heard from Dasha. What stands out to you? And is this a more focused operation compared to his first transition?
Yes, because he didn't really participate in the transition from Obama to his administration, and didn't also really participate in the transition between his administration and the Biden administration. Though, as we have seen over the course of this campaign, whether you look at Project 2025 and all of our discussions about it and the discussions of the people who were involved in Project 2025, they've been laser focused on not just policy prescriptions that they want to do, but also the people who would staff a Republican/Trump administration. And so, yes, this transition, at least in terms of how President-elect Trump is dealing with it, much more focused on who's going to be in the administration, who's loyal to him and to his policy objectives and to his goals.
House control, Congressman, is still up in the air right now. There are still dozens of races, key races, not called just yet. But if Republicans end up with a trifecta here, the House, the Senate, the White House, what does that mean in terms of Donald Trump's first 100 days?
Yeah, so it's a fascinating question. The biggest concern of total control would be that House Democrats don't have the oversight authority and ultimately the impeachment authority if we ended up in a situation like that. I'm not sure Donald Trump's first 100 days requires much of a legislative agenda. His real legislative agenda is extending the tax cut package that he first implemented, and they have a year to do that until the end of the year. To me, the greatest concern is what he does by executive authority in the first 100 days. The immigration roundups, tariffs by proclamation, the lawfare at the Department of Justice going after the enemies, what he does to the NATO alliance, what he does in Russia, what he does in the Middle East. None of that requires the Hill, but what we will see from the Hill is falling in line and a public defense of whatever Donald Trump does using executive authority.
All of those promises you just ticked through, we are going to discuss throughout the hour here. Thank you both so much. Jonathan Capehart and former Congressman David Jolly. Good conversation, guys. And be sure to catch Jonathan every Saturday and Sunday at 6 p.m. Eastern right here on MSNBC. Stay with us this morning as President Biden prepares to address the nation. Again, his remarks set for 11 a.m. Eastern. We will carry them live. Also ahead, could the Biden administration see an increase in migrants at the border ahead of Trump taking power? How the White House is preparing. Plus, the DOJ moving to wind down its cases against Trump. What can he do to that department once he takes power? But first, control of the House still up in the air. Republicans hoping for a clean sweep. We'll talk to Democratic Congressman Eric Swalwell about that and whether he's concerned about potential political retribution from the president-elect. We're back in just 90 seconds.
Everyone loves more food for less money. That's why Subway made it easy to build a $6.99 meal deal with any 6-inch sub.
Wait, Subway did what?
Dad? Dad?
Any sub?
That's right. For a limited time, make any 6-inch sub of your choice into a meal deal with chips and drink, all for just $6.99. Get your $6.99 meal deal at Subway and join MVP Rewards for even more great deals.
I'm interested in trying these new weight loss shots, but I need it to be more affordable
Because my insurance doesn't cover it.
I'm not sure which online provider to trust, and I want to ask a doctor a lot of questions.
The secret's out. At Henry Meds, our knowledgeable providers demystify compounded semaglutide, the same active ingredient in brand name weight management meds. If you're eligible for treatment, your medication will be shipped to your door for just $297 a month. You can save thousands by using Henry Meds for weight management medication.
Get the latest updates on future MSNBC live events, thought-provoking conversations, and insider perspectives while building your MSNBC community. Scan the QR code on your screen to sign up today.
Welcome back. This morning, Democrats are hanging on by a thread in the fight for control of the House of Representatives. Right now, Republicans are closing in on that 218-seat threshold needed to keep control of that chamber. The GOP is just 9 seats away from reaching that threshold this morning. House Speaker Mike Johnson already predicting his party will hold its majority, but Democrats say hope is not lost. Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries saying the House remains very much in play. NBC News correspondent Ali Vitale is tracking all of this at the big board. So there are some key races that haven't been called. Ali,